Hey guys, this video comes to you a few days too late, but I wanted to do it just to get it out there. But I really wanted to do what my top 2013 films were. So I've got 10 on this list, and this was actually one of the harder lists I've ever done. There were some decent movies that came out in 2013, but there wasn't really a lot that stuck to mind unlike 2012. Like 2012, bang, I instantly knew what my top 10 films were. For 2013, I could get the first 5, and then I struggled with the rest. Now, there are some movies I didn't see. I didn't see Prisoners. I didn't see 12 Years a Slave. I'm pretty sure that if I had seen that, this would be up on the list, but these are just movies that I saw. So anyway, starting off with number 10 is Elysium. Now, I really like Neil Blomkamp's movies. I like his world building. I love District 9. Elysium was good. There wasn't a lot of substance there. It was still really good visually. I love the world that it was based in. Matt Damon was all right. The action scenes were pretty good, even though there was not as many. And I really liked the production of what they did with the characters. I thought Sharlto Copley's villain character was a bit ridiculous, but he was still entertaining. And Jodie Foster's accent was interesting, considering you were trying to figure out what she was. But it wasn't the best. It definitely wasn't Neil Blomkamp's best movie, but it still had substance and the appeal of what his movies are. And his world building is awesome, and that's why Elysium is my number 10. Number 9 is 42. Now, I'm kind of odd with sports movies. I thought this was odd that there was only one that came out last year. Really, sports movies are kind of going on the lower end of film, but 42 was great. I love the story of Jackie Robinson, and I love this story. The guy that got to play him was great actor. Like, he really showed off some emotion. Like, at first I thought there wasn't really going to be anything, but especially with the scene where where Wash from Serenity is calling him a N-word, and then he goes into the bullpen, and he goes in the hallway towards the locker room, and he just smashes the bat against the wall, and he just starts crying. I thought that was great emotionality, and I loved Harrison Ford too. You know, out of all the films, I hope he gets. I know he won't, but I would think that he should deserve an Oscar Best Supporting Actor nomination. I loved his character in this movie. I thought he was great. Some of the dialogue he said was awesome. And no, really, really good. And I think that's why number 42 is number 9 on my list. Now, number 8 is something that I have to definitely bite my tongue on. For years, I've said that horror movies suck. And for the most part, they kind of have. But since James Wan has really started to make good movies, especially with Insidious, which I just saw, that was really good. And then with The Conjuring, another really good movie that just uses really kind of practical ideas, and doesn't just rely off jump scares. It relies off really kind of pulling you in. Like, yeah, there are some jump scares here and there, but it pulls you into the moment. It doesn't just like flash crap at you. And the story was really good too. Like, that's one thing I was really interested in, was how the story worked out, and the fact that this was, well, for most part, I haven't really looked into how the movie ends, if that's really true, but most of the things that they had happen were is a true story. My favorite part definitely was when the kid was on the bed and she woke up her sister and she says, "Can't you see it?" He's standing there looking at us behind the door, and I remember just pulling. I was like, "Oh!" So that's why I think Conjuring was definitely The Conjuring. Sorry, I keep saying Conjuring. The Conjuring was number 8 of my best movie this year. Now, number 7 is something that's going to definitely get some people, is Gravity. Now, the reason why I put it back here is because Gravity was great. It had great 3D, best 3D I've ever seen. It was awesome to see in the IMAX. But the problem is, when that movie comes out on DVD, it's not going to be as good. Like, we really got the experience because of the theater we were in, and with the technology. Unless you have a really big ass TV and you're into that 3D crap at home, like I I'm all right with it at the theaters, but I don't know, I think it'd be silly at home. Gravity will not be as good when you see it at home. But I'm not just saying, and that's not to take anything away from it. It definitely was a really good movie. It had really intense scenes. I thought that everyone was good. I thought that, some people went at Sandra Bullock's character for being weak. I thought that she was playing the role perfectly. She really put me into fear. Like, I'm afraid of going into space. But I thought definitely when the Hubble Space Telescope blew up, boom, that was so cool. That was awesome. And yeah, and also the story is a bit absurd of how the Russians basically destroy all of the out of space technology and communication. So that's why Gravity is number 7 on my list. Number 6 is a movie that at first I was kind of odd about, and then after thinking about it, I really liked it, is Don John. Now, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's a really cool guy, and I really liked him in this movie. I think this was a great opener for him as a director and a writer. It was a really simple story, but it worked well. He kept it very formulaic, but not in a bad way. Like, they followed the film kind of followed the same kind of steps that he takes. Like, all he cares about is his body, his home, his car, his buddies, his church, his family, and his porn. That was something that was interesting too for a film that was all about this. There was no there was no real nudity on the screen. It was actually, it was all, well, yeah, actually, I'm trying to think. And it was all the porn clips, which was very interesting because I was wondering how he was able to get those in, with those porn actors given compensation. But no, he gave a really kind of interesting idea of how men have this over-exaggerated feel of what sex should be, and the same idea of what women think relationships should be with their romantic comedies. And then also, I found it interesting was what Scarlett Johansson's character would later turn out to be, this kind of controlling, very selfish kind of person, and I liked that. I thought that was really good. So that's why Don John is number 6 on my list. Number 5 is World's End. I didn't see this in theaters, and I wish I had. I never saw any of the Cornetto trilogy in theaters, and I'm so angry at that. But I thought World's End was great. I thought that the jokes were awesome. I thought Simon Pegg, Simon Pegg wasn't as big of a dick as I thought he was going to be. I thought his character was a bit foolhardy, but it was really cool because they had that little bit, with all these Simon Pegg, Nick Frost movies, there's always a lot more to it than that's on the eye. Like, they actually have a level of depth to their comedies, and it was really great. They had great jokes, and the whole idea of robots taking over was awesome, and that little kind of idea that humans can never be controlled at the end was funny. Probably my favorite part was at the end where he's trying to get that last well, no, I think it was, I can't remember what bar it was, but they're trying to fight, and he keeps on trying to drink this pint, and he keeps on getting into altercation, and that's probably one of my favorite parts. So that is why World's End is number 5 on my list, and it was a great end to that trilogy. Now, number 4 is a movie that it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I went into Rush expecting it to be a car movie. Like, I knew there was going to be characters, but I also thought there was going to be like some really cool driving sequences, and there's not so many driving sequences because there's a lot of the film is they actually use some footage of when Niki Lauda and James Hunt. Now I don't know, I first I was a bit miffed about that, but then when you really got into the characters, it's like, wow, these were really good. I like James Hunt because I liked how his personality was. I also like Niki Lauda. But they were both dicks, technically, in their own right. James Hunt was just this party guy who really had no real commitments to anything. And then Niki Lauda was such a committed asshole that he just made fun of everyone. He always downed people. But the fact that these two, their rivalry really kept them going, especially with Niki Lauda when he has this car accident. His rivalry with Hunt gets him back out of the hospital. And I love how the movie ends, too, and how James Hunt, that was it. He was done, and Niki Lauda went on to win many Grand Prix afterwards. I thought it was really cool. I think it was great acting, and the scene at the end with James Hunt trying to win the Grand Prix was awesome. I thought that was really good intensity there. So that's why I say Rush is my number 4th favorite film of 2013. Now, Captain Phillips, which is number 3, that one was definitely something that surprised me. I thought that the acting was phenomenal from Tom Hanks, and I thought it was kind of interesting how there's a few things here and there that definitely aren't true to the story, but they, at the very beginning, you find that he's a dick, and apparently that's what he was. Apparently, Captain Phillips was a bit of an asshole with his rigs, but the whole conception with the terrorists did, and how there's only 4 of them, and just all these little things they did to try and get them off the boat, and then how many days they were in that submarine for was crazy. But then my favorite part definitely was the last moments, the final moments with the film, was when Captain Phillips is brought out and he's in shock, and it's always probably some of the best acting I've ever seen of people faking shock. Like, that was the most believable interpretation of it I've ever seen in films. Like, good job, Tom Hanks. Definitely deserves an Oscar nom for that. So that's why Captain Phillips is my number 3. Number 2 is a movie, again, I did not see in theaters, but I really liked it, is Place Beyond the Pines. Now, it might be because I'm a sucker for Ryan Gosling and I like Drive, but I thought this was a really good movie because it had multiple narratives, which was really interesting because you thought Ryan, like, that twist kind of that it comes in about 40 minutes in, you're like, whoa, you couldn't believe that happened. And it really did give a really cool story about the idea of what happens with with fathers and their sons and the consequences that both take, and just that layer of storytelling and the kind of the severity of the story, also just the brutal realism that it had, that just kind of life is crap. I thought the ending was a little odd, but I thought that everyone did really well. Maybe Bradley Cooper's son could have been chosen by a better actor, maybe, but no, I really liked the whole story. I loved how it ended, up until how it ended, and I just liked how everything came together. So that's why Place Beyond the Pines is number 2. Now for my number 1 movie, I'm a sucker for Scorsese Rise and Fall epics, and this was the last movie of the year I saw. But Wolf on Wall Street is definitely my number 1 movie of the year. Not just because Leonardo DiCaprio was amazing in it, not just because it showed this amazing, ridiculously weird story of this stockbroker and the amount of drugs he had, the amount of sex he had, how ridiculously crazy The Office was, and not just because it had lots of nice looking ladies in it, but just because it's a Scorsese film doing what he does best, which is his rise and fall movies, just like Goodfellas and just like Casino. It's a rise and fall movie, and it was great. I wouldn't say it's his best movie, but it's definitely one of his best movies. I thought it was great, and I found probably one of the most interesting things I found about it was that, you know, he was a scumbag, but because he was played by Leo, and there was a certain scene where he could have gotten out because he could have quit, and he's trying to make this speech to his friends, to his fellow workers, that you're caring for the scumbag, which is so interesting. I like this so much. I've already bought the book, and it was definitely my number 1 movie just because of the writing, the story. Despite the fact that it was 3 hours long, I was entertained the whole time. There was great jokes in it, and it definitely had a really I love its ending. Its final minute. It's great. The whole idea of just sell me this pen. That was my favorite scene, just how it ended. That was a perfect ending. So anyway, guys, that's all for me. I hope you guys like this list. Sorry it came out late. It's probably, I don't even think anyone's going to see it, but I really wanted to do it. Sorry it's really long, but no, these were my favorite movies of this year. Tell me what you guys think, and if any of you guys agree or disagree, tell me. Now, I know there's a few other movies like Pacific Rim. I like that movie, but I do admit it wasn't that great. I kind of like Man of Steel, but yeah, it's definitely not up with here. There's a few movies that I wanted to put in here, but really they weren't this great of material. So anyway, guys, that's all for me. Thanks for listening. See you guys later.